Hey, good morning. Welcome to Westbridge Church. My name's Jeremiah. I'm one of the pastors here. It's awesome to have you with us today. I want to say hello to everybody joining us online. Thanks for participating there. And if you're in a parent viewing room, great option if you have small kids you prefer to keep with you during the service. And then everybody sitting in our cafe. And thanks for your patience today. The parking lot is jam-packed. Every curb, there's people parking on yellow lines. There's people parking in the grass. There's cars everywhere. So appreciate your patience. That's a good problem to have. We would love to, we're working, as best as we can as a faith community moving towards phase 2. But in the meantime, thanks for your patience. Really, really appreciate it. And we've got a lot of people walking through our doors during this season. And appreciate you making room and doing your best to just navigate this season of growth that we're experiencing together. I want to mention on Wednesday nights, many of you are aware that over the last couple of months, I guess, Chandler and Heather, our youth pastor, they took a position in South Carolina. So Wednesday nights, I was like, well, hey, I was a youth pastor for 10 years before we did this. So here we go, jumping back in the saddle. And so we had Wednesday nights, 6th through 12th grade. The last two Wednesdays, we've had over 200 kids at youth group. So much fun. So I say that to say, if you have a 6th through 12th grader, or if you're in 6th through 12th grade, you should come. You should come and check it out. They do their own band and worship, and then teaching and small group time and a bunch of games, and it is a lot of fun and a great way to grow in your faith as a teenager. A bunch of adult leaders who are there investing in your life. Really, really great thing. So I want to encourage you, send your kid. If you're a kid in high school, make it a priority to come. You're going to have a blast, and you're going to meet some other kids your age as well. And then the other thing I want to mention is if you want to get connected, if you want to jump into a life group, there's a card in front of you that just says, hey, here's the day of the week that might work for me. Here's the group I might be interested in. You can just fill that out and drop it in a giving station. And then Kristen Fisher, our life group director, she will connect with you and help you get connected in the right group. Or you can also do it if you're like, I'm a little bit more digital. You can go right on the Westbridge Church app. And in the app, there's something that says life group interest form. It's not signing you up for a life group. It's just saying, I'm interested. Here's what I might be interested in. And you just fill that in right on your phone. It emails her immediately, and then she has all of your info. She'll follow up with you and make sure that you get connected in a life group. And we really want that for you because we say this all the time. You don't have to know everybody, but you should know somebody. Because the church, as we grow larger, we also grow smaller. We want to make sure that there is somebody that you're traveling with in this journey of faith. So make sure that you do that. We would love to help you in any way that we can and to help you get connected. Now, we're in week 2 of this series called Picture Perfect. This is all about family and parenting, this whole dynamic that we have as parents. Last week was scream-free parenting, right? How do we, retain influence and discipline our kids without losing our minds in the process? And the most consistent feedback I got from last week was, man, I wish I'd heard that 10 years ago, or I wish I'd heard that 20 years ago. And so what I want to just start off today with is this. We all have regrets when we look back at our parenting. I've yet to meet the parent that's like, nope, nailed it. Yeah, perfect job. Every single one of us, we look back at our lives and we go, man, there are things we would have done differently. There's things I wish I hadn't said. There's things I wish I hadn't done. There's things that I wish I had said. I wish I'd set different boundaries. I wish I'd set different boundaries at different ages. There's all kinds of things that we just look back at, and all of us have some regrets. But here's what I want to encourage you with. God is way more concerned with your future than he is with your past. And it's never too late to start, regardless of the age of your kids. It is never too late to start. Something is always better than nothing. And we live in what is, we strive for the ideal, but we live in what's real. And I want you to know, God can take what you might feel like is a hopeless situation, and he can redeem it. He can bring hope and healing to that relationship. If you're willing to pray and say, God, would you get involved and take some steps and put some things into practice. And so I want to encourage you with that. So it's never too late to start, regardless of the age of your kids. Now, as we jump into week 2, there's a couple of funny descriptions on parenting that I found on X that I thought were really appropriate. I love this. Somebody wrote, I love Sunday nights because that's the night my kids tell me they don't have any homework, and then ending up asking if I can buy printer ink at 10 p.m. It's a fun routine, right? How about this? Parenting, where 1 minute you're breaking up fights and sending everyone to their rooms, and the next you're crying over the baby pictures on your phone. If that doesn't describe the emotional roller coaster that is parenting, I don't know what does. This one's my favorite. If you're on the fence about having kids, Just repeat, put your shoes on, please, 100 times in a row until you're in a blinding rage, and see if parenting's a good fit for you. And that's pretty appropriate, right? I want to remind us of the verse that we started this series with from the Psalms. It says, children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from him. Children born to a young man are like arrows in a warrior's hands. How joyful is the man whose quiver is full of them. And I think it's an appropriate analogy because there are some things that you do with an arrow, right? You aim it, and then you pull it back, and then you release it. And you do the same thing with kids, right? You aim them, you give them direction in their life, you pull it back, you prepare them, and then, this is the fun part, you let them fly. You release them into the wild and you let them fly. And so today, I want to give us 4 things that all kids need to fly well. That once you release them, that they are able to fly and they're able to fly well. So we're going to discuss 4 things every kid needs from parents. And here's the secret. We all need these things. We all need these things. So remember, it's never too late to begin to put some of these things into practice, no matter the age of your kids. And some of you might say this, well, we don't have kids yet. Never a better time to learn. And also, some of you might be grandparents. You might be aunts or uncles. You might be older siblings. You might even be a coach or a teacher or a mentor. And these principles will apply to the lives of kids in whose life you have influence. And so we can put these things into practice, not only as parents, but as loving adults in the lives of kids. So here we go. The first thing that kids need is unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance. Somehow, some way, you've got to figure out some language that expresses to your children, I love you no matter what. I love you and that will never change. I love you, and there is nothing that you could ever do, and there is nothing you could ever say that would ever change the way that I see you, the way that I look at you. You are my son, you are my daughter, that will never change. We've got to communicate that to kids. And this creates an incredible foundation of security in their life. Now, some of you are old enough to remember, I'm certainly old enough to remember, the name Greg Louganis. Back in the 80s, he represented the United States in the Olympics in diving competitions, and he's still considered one of the greatest divers of all time. In the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, Korea, I remember this as a kid. I was watching the Olympics, and he encountered some challenges. In one of his dives, he hit his head in the same spot that had killed a diver 5 years earlier. And he got some temporary stitches, and then he went back in and went for another dive. And in his attempt for the gold, he decided to do a reverse 3.5 somersault tuck. I don't even know what that means. But I was researching this. It was a breathtaking finish. It brought Americans to their feet. Everyone began to cheer, and he won the gold medal. And when reporters were hounding him, he gets back to Los Angeles. Reporters are asking him all these questions, and he gives them a very unusual response. They asked him, what were you thinking as you prepared for that final dive? And they're thinking like, they're referring to the pressure, the fact that this dive is incredibly difficult, the fact that another diver had died attempting this dive just a few years earlier. And Greg Louganis looks back at the reporters and he says this, I was thinking that no matter what happens, my mother will still love me. What an interesting response. Well, it's because when Greg was just 11 years old, he had become very frustrated at a diving performance early on in an important meet. And his mom, Frances, took her son aside and she said this to him, I do not come to see you win. Greg, I come to see you dive. Just do your best. I will love you no matter what. And that unconditional love carried her son to 43 national diving titles and 4 Olympic gold medals. And the challenge for most of us as parents, it's not that we don't believe that. I've never met a parent who doesn't believe that. The problem for us is that we forget to consistently express that. We all believe that as parents in our hearts, but how often do we express it to our kids? And often in the heat of parenting, we just gotta pull our kids close and remind them, there is nothing you could ever do that will ever change the way I feel about you. I will always love you, no matter what. It's a good routine for us at bedtime when I tell my kids, guys, I love you. There's nothing that will ever change that. And when my oldest daughter was about 2 years old, we had this routine. She would say, I love you, and I'd say, I love you more. And then she'd say, I love you the mostest. And we'd go back and forth. Whoever started it ended it with I love you the mostest, except at 2, she couldn't pronounce mostest. So she'd say, I love you. And I go, I love you more. And she'd go, I love you the moliest. And I love you the moliest became an expression of unconditional love in our household that we still use to this day. So what are you doing to communicate to your kids on a regular basis? I love you the moliest. That will never change. And sometimes in the heat of parenting, we forget to communicate that our kids' behavior does not equate to how we think of them. We must go out of our way to communicate to our kids that our love for them is not rooted in how they behave. It isn't rooted in what they've done. It's not based on what they've done in the past, but it is simply attached to ultimately who they belong to. That will never change because you're my son. That will never change because you're my daughter. And this was modeled for us by Jesus. So the Apostle Paul is a guy who started churches in the first century and wrote letters back to churches and individuals about the way of Jesus. In his letter to the Roman Empire, first century followers of Jesus in the Roman Empire, he says this: God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners. In other words, it wasn't based on our behavior. It was this unconditional move on God's part while we were still sinners. It wasn't like, hey, if you do this, then this will happen. It wasn't this conditional response. It was completely unconditional, that while we were still sinners, while we were still stuck in sin, Jesus came and gave his life for us. I mean, that communicates this absolute unconditional love and acceptance. And we must communicate that to our children as well. Our kids need unconditional acceptance. And when we do that, it creates an incredible foundation of security in their life. Now, here's the second thing that our kids need: ongoing physical affection. They need this from us as parents. And I added the modifier ongoing for the men in here. Because, guys, we're simple creatures. If I just said affection, a lot of us would go home, give our kid a hug, and go, check it off the list, done. Some guys, not all guys, but some guys have the emotional equivalent of a brick. Now, I know this is stereotyping, okay, but statistically and stereotypically speaking, women, you're better at showing affection than men. This is why no kid has ever been playing in the front yard, gotten hurt, run in the house and gone, Dad! What do they say? Mom! Why? Because moms care. That's why. I could be running in the house as a kid with a broken arm, and my dad would be like, walk it off, rub some dirt on it. I'd be like, Dad, I'd love to walk it off, but my bone is sticking out of my arm. I still remember as a kid, you remember this when you were a kid and you'd get sick? Like 3 a.m, you're like, oh no, and you're like, that kind of thing, and you gotta throw up. And so you'd run into the bathroom, and like before the lid could even hit the back of the toilet, mom's right there, right? She's just like rubbing your hair, stroking your neck, analyzing what you had for dinner, And I just remember thinking to myself, where's Dad? And then I became a dad, and I knew where Dad was. He was sleeping. He was tired. This idea of affection is something that emotionally healthy kids have in common. They have been given proper affection, and they've received a lot of it. And social scientists have a term for this. It's called skin hunger. This is a real thing. We desire affection, and it must be fed in appropriate ways, because if it isn't, we settle for inappropriate affection. And then that causes us to become emotionally distant from the people in our lives that we love the most. And the truth is, men, if you can't show your kids proper physical and emotional affection, they will suffer. Statistics reveal unaffectionate dads produce boys who don't know how to express themselves emotionally. Unaffectionate dads produce girls who actually become sexually promiscuous, because if that affection is absent, they will seek it out in other places. And let's just be honest. When I talk about this, when I talk about affection, some of us have some warning lights going off. There might be a reason why showing affection is difficult for you. Maybe you grew up in a house where that just wasn't the case. It wasn't modeled for you. Maybe your parents got the affection bypass surgery and somehow passed it on to you. Maybe for you growing up, it was just like, hey, I love you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. Regardless of what you grew up in, it's so important for us that we don't let our wounds, our childhood wounds, bleed into the next generation. That we don't allow those things to wound our kids, maybe in the way that it's wounded you. Some of you had inappropriate affection in your life. And if that's you, I'm really, really sorry. If no one's ever told you that, I'm really sorry that that happened to you. I know it's a huge hurdle to get over. But for all of us, we have hurdles from our past that we must not allow to wound the next generation as we move forward. So whatever we can do to provide resources or help so that you can move past that, we would love to do that. I just decided early on, when our first daughter was born, we just decided, both my wife and I, we are just going to be affection on steroids. We're just going to hug the snot out of these little people. No matter what, right? And that affection is deeper than words. It shows love in today's culture where affection has been neglected or twisted. Because we can be in a relationship now and not even be face to face. We don't have to have any physical contact, and that skin hunger can become very, very real. I love what John, one of the followers of Jesus, he writes a letter in the first century. He says this, "Dear children, let us stop saying we love each other. Let us really show it by our actions." And one of those things that you can do is to show really good affection to your kids. And here's what's fascinating. Those of you who are parents of preteens or teenagers, this is especially important for you. And here's why. When puberty hits, most parents back off from showing affection to their kids because that's when their kids, respectfully, seem demon-possessed. I said respectfully. The ironic thing is like preteen kids are like, you know, they're all hormonal, and like preteen boys haven't discovered Axe body spray yet. And so it's like, and then they're like, don't hug me. Mom, stay away. My 11-year-old right now is like, Mom, you can kiss me once, but like no more of this stuff on my cheek, you know? So my wife's like, gobble you up, you little knucklehead. And here's what's happening. It's so ironic because kids at that age are like, Mom, you're embarrassing. Dad, you're embarrassing. Stay back. And you're like, that's so ironic. Have you met you? Like, we hang out with you. And here's what's fascinating. This is a season in life when kids face their biggest insecurities. It's their biggest insecurities. It's the same reason that as parents, we tend to dish it out the least. We're like, I don't know what's going on with this kid right now, you know, so I'm just going to stay back. I'm going to give them their space. But this is when our kids need affection the most. Our 11-year-old needs more hugs than he's ever had before, right? If you need an example of this, just look at 5th through 7th grade boys. What do? They're always wrestling with each other. They're always punching and kicking each other and touching each other. Why? Because they're awkward and nobody else is touching them. So they have to touch each other. And they don't have the emotional intelligence to be like, hold me. Right? No 5th, 6th, 7th grade boy has ever walked in to mom and dad and they're like, I have skin hunger. Could you just give me a hug right now? But they need it, right? That's why one of the greatest things you can do with boys that age is just put them in a headlock and drag them around the house. I mean, they soak it in, man, you know? And so I've done a lot of things wrong as a parent, okay? Let me just tell you that. And when I look back at the lives of our kids, we made a whole lot of mistakes. There's a whole lot of things I wish I could go back and undo and redo. I'm just trying to limit the amount of therapy that my kids are going to be in one day, okay? But what I can tell you is there isn't a day that goes by that our kids don't get loads of hugs from me and their mom. I mean, that's just mission critical. We just decided early on, they're just going to receive tons and tons and tons of affection from us. And there's not a day that goes by like that they don't see us hug each other. Like I want them to know, like we should be grossing them out once a day. That's the goal. That's the mission. Parents, if you push these opportunities away, you push children away. When you push these opportunities away, you push children away. And they might go, gross, don't hug me, don't kiss me, blah, 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 but they need it. They need it. Kids who don't get appropriate affection will seek it out in other areas. And unfortunately, our culture offers a lot of opportunities for them to experience physical affection in ways that are not healthy. Again, the Apostle Paul writes this, love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. I can't think of another relationship where this applies more than with your family. This is something you can begin to put into practice this afternoon. You can put this into practice at the end of this service, right in the lobby. It'd be amazing. Like, why are all these guys in headlocks? It's unbelievable. Make it a goal to show ongoing physical affection to your kids because they need it. Here's another thing kids need: serious fun. Serious fun. All kids need this from parents and caring adults in their life. Why fun? Because this is a stressed out generation, man. I'm telling you, they live in a fast-paced society. Many parents are driven. They want their kids to be driven. They want their kids to perform. For some insecure parents, the better their kids perform, the better the parents feel about themselves. So they're always pushing their kids, putting pressure on their kids so that they feel good about themselves as parents. But here's what I can tell you. Kids need to laugh. They need to have fun. They need to play. Laughter helps release anxiety. It helps diminish fears. It helps lessen hostility and rage. And the scriptures say that joy is a good thing, both physically and emotionally. King Solomon writes this nearly 3,000 years ago in the Proverbs. He says, "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit saps a person's strength." And we all know that that's true, don't we? We've all been in situations where we had our hopes high and it didn't come through, and it saps our strength. But man, a cheerful heart is good medicine. But a broken spirit saps our energy. It saps our strength. That it actually affects you physically when you're not experiencing joy. I love this. He writes this: "A glad heart makes a happy face." I love watching kids walk in here on Sunday mornings, and some of them walk in, they're just like, 3, 4 years old. It's just like, man, I love that. They got a glad heart. I believe that those of us who aligned ourselves with the person of Jesus should be the ones modeling fun. But for some reason, some Christians believe, there are followers of Jesus who believe, no, you have to be serious, because when you're serious, that's when you're deep and mature. We must always be deep and mature. And there are a lot of people who are serious, and they're not any more mature. Their faith hasn't grown. They're just boring. And I know a lot of boring followers of Jesus who think this is the way to maturity. Can I just tell you something? Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes, there's a time for everything, a time to laugh, a time to dance. I think one of the necessary rhythms of life is laughter and dance. These things are healthy. Personally, I think it's good that those go together, because every time I dance, there is laughter. And I think it's good that those go together. I want you to know, as a church, we value fun. We take our faith in Jesus seriously. We do not take ourselves seriously. We value fun. And some of you grew up in a church where you were never allowed to laugh, where, smiling was discouraged, where a grimace was actually preferred. Like, this is how you follow Jesus. And for some of you, that shaped you. Not only did it shape your view of church, it shaped your view of God. This is the God that you've been running away from. Because the way that you saw God was kind of this serious, angry, cosmic killjoy just waiting for you to screw up so he could punish you. You've been running from that God. And I have to believe that Jesus himself laughed. I got to believe that. Now, there's no verse to back that up, okay? I don't have a Bible verse. Nothing in Scripture says, one time Jesus was cracking a joke, right? Pharisee and a rabbi and a tax collector walk into a bar, There's no verse for that. But the eyewitnesses and the scriptures tell us that Jesus was fully human, that he experienced the things that we experience. And humans laugh. And we enjoy humor. Think about Jesus. He didn't have a place to live, didn't have a permanent home. So most of the time he's a traveling rabbi, traveling with 12 guy buddies, okay, camping. 13 dudes camping for 3 years. You are not going to convince me there were not some pull my finger moments, okay? I'm just telling you, that had to have happened. You're like, no, Jesus would never do that. He probably would have said something like, "Thou art funny, Peter." I delighteth at thy jesting. If Jesus never laughed, if Jesus never had fun, then I think that's kind of a warped view of God. And that's the God that you're either running to or running from. So let me tell you this, every time we do child dedications here, one of the things that we remind parents is, you are the earliest reflection of God to your kids. You set the tone for what God is like in their minds. Because you're the earliest reflection of what God is like to them. From an early age, you're the most influential reflection of what God is like in the life of your kids. Do they view him as angry? Do they view him as, fun is bad? Or do they know that he takes delight in them? That he's the one who created joy and laughter and humor? That he takes delight in their life. And when was the last time someone snorted around the dinner table because someone was laughing so hard in your family? If you can't think of a time, it might be time to lighten up and have some fun together as a family. Schedule it in. Schedule a family, game night. Schedule some time off of the phones, or do something fun as a family where you can laugh together and hang out together. Do something with your kids, because kids need serious fun. They need unconditional acceptance. They need to know they're loved no matter what. They need consistent affection, ongoing physical affection, and they need serious fun. And finally, kids need this: consistent presence. Consistent presence. They need us to be in their life. Now, personally, this is the most difficult one for me to hear. This is the most convicting for me, because I already look at what I feel is an overwhelming schedule and how much time there is and how little time there is to do it. And maybe you feel the same way. I'm like, gee, if we had, 10 days a week, that would be really helpful. Have you ever stopped to consider exactly how much time you give to your kids each week? Now, I don't mean to be depressing, but James, the brother of Jesus, writes this: your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while and then it's gone. Your life is like the morning fog. We had fog the other day. Thursday morning, there was fog in the morning. And then I was driving here to church, and by the time I got here, the fog had lifted. That's how quick a fog is. And James says, in the grand scheme of eternity, that's kind of like your life. It's like a morning fog. And every single day, again, I don't mean to depress us, but I want to make us aware. Every single day, we're given 86,400 seconds of time. You're like, thank you, professor. The question that you and I have to continually confront with ourselves is this: how am I going to manage those seconds? Now think about it. Here's the wake-up call for us. If we spend 10 minutes a day with our kids, that's 600 seconds, or less than 1% of our time. If we spend 30 minutes with our kids, that's 1,800 seconds, or roughly 3% of our day. Well, think about that. Now, you're free to disagree with me on this, but I'm just telling you, from my experience as a youth pastor, working with hundreds and hundreds of teenagers, if you don't give them your consistent presence, there's going to come a time in their life where you will become a shift manager in your own bed and breakfast. And they'll sleep there, and they'll eat there, and that's about it. And you don't have a lot of relationship with them. If you want to have influence in your child's life, you've got to spend time with them, because time is the currency of love. Do you want your kids to know that you love them? Give them time and attention. Make it obvious to them that they're not an inconvenience to you. Make it obvious to them they're not a burden to you. One of the main contributing factors of healthy kids is having parents and other significant adults in their life. Kids need you to be present. I mentioned this, that we've been, for the last 2 weeks, had youth group, over 200 kids each week at youth group. It's been a blast. And because I was a youth pastor in my previous life, I decided to step into this season as we're looking to hire. And man, it's been a blast. I had the opportunity to hang out last week with a 6th grade group of boys. And me and another leader. And what's awesome is I'm looking out across the different age groups, and there's a bunch of adult leaders that are investing in the lives of kids. And you know what? It's not for their benefit. They don't get anything in return. They just go, I want to invest in the next generation. I want to help their faith grow. And you know what? Kids need that. Teenagers need that. They need somebody, because you know this as parents. If you've got kids, especially if you've got teenagers, you can tell them something. You're like, hey, let me give you, this piece of advice. Let me give you this piece of wisdom. I think this will help you. And they're like, okay. And then they'll come home from youth group, and they'll be like, Dad, this is what my youth leader said. Isn't that awesome? And you're like, bro, that's exactly what I said to you right before you left. I'm like, yeah, but when he said it, it just made sense. Because what kids need, they need adults in their life. Not just parents, but other adults in their life who are reinforcing what you're modeling at home. One of the best things you can give them is your presence. You may subscribe to this idea, well, I don't have a lot of time because of my schedule. So, the time that I do have with them, though, I make it quality time. And so maybe that's your idea is quality time over quantity time. And if that's you, I just want you to tell you, you're wrong. And that's okay. You have the right to be wrong. But here's what I can tell you. No kid in the history of humanity has ever distinguished between quality time and quantity time. No kid's ever come in and just been like, whoa, Dad, I know we could only spend 5 minutes together. But the quality of that time, I'm full. I couldn't take another minute. It was too rich. Kids don't think like that, okay? So this idea of presence is a challenge. It's a challenge to our priorities. And if we're being honest, this is when you speak from your weakness, you never run out of material, okay? It is a confrontation of our own selfishness. And here's why. Let's just be honest. It's not always because there isn't enough time. The truth is, many seasons of their childhood, it's not that much fun to do what they like to do, right? You're like, sure, let's play Candyland again. All right, round number 17 of Candyland. I love it. Part of it is you have to confront your own selfishness and go, no, I want to spend time with them. I want to get into their world, right? Because I'm in them. I'm interested in them. It's not because I'm interested in the things they're interested in, but I'm just interested in them. My 11-year-old loves fishing. I could take it or leave it. But if he wants to go fishing, I go, all right, let's go fishing. I'm not into fishing, but I'm into him. My 17-year-old's into classical music. I go, all right, dude, what are you listening to lately? What are you writing lately? He's got a Spotify channel. I'm listening to all of his singles that he puts out. Not music I would normally listen to, but I'm not interested in classical music. I'm interested in him. I want to be in their world, so I got to give up my preferences. And can I tell you something? Right now, your kids want your presence, but there's going to come a day where that's going to switch. And if you don't give your kids your presence now, there's going to come a day when you're going to be like, hey, son, hey, daughter, do you want to hang out, right? And they're adults, they're going to go, Dad, too busy, Mom, too busy. And the tables will turn. So give them your presence as much as you can now. And by the way, if you're a single parent, in all sincerity, you are my freaking hero. My wife went on a mission trip for 6 days last year. And I was left with one kid who could go to the bathroom by himself, feed himself, dress himself. And I don't know how I got any work done that week. It was unbelievable. And for those of you that's your ongoing reality, I'm telling you, God will bless you. He's going to bless your hard work and the effort that you're putting in during these years. And I genuinely believe this, that your kids will look back and they're going to appreciate you so much. You keep doing what you're doing, and we want to help you as a church. Bring your kids here on Wednesdays, Bring them here on Sundays. Go to all 3 services. Leave them in there. But here's what kids won't appreciate. Those of us who are just working just to make a little extra, just so that we can, have nicer cars and a bigger house and stroke our own egos. And then we blame our kids that we have to work so hard to pay for their activities and their habits. And if that's you, can I just tell you, your kids would much rather have your time than your money. And throughout the scriptures, this idea of presence is a really big ongoing theme. In the very beginning of the creation narrative, we are told that it is the very presence of God that brings everything into existence. That God is present and active, and then it says that he speaks. It is the word that he speaks. Now follow this through. God's presence invaded humanity in the person of Jesus. So John actually writes this and says, the word, so this is a pull back from God's presence and his words from creation. And then he says the word, which is a reference to Jesus. He says the word became human and made his home among us. This is amazing. That presence is a big deal to God. And now if you have a relationship with Jesus, we actually possess his presence in our life on an ongoing basis. So the Apostle Paul writes to the church in Ephesus and says, I pray that from his glorious unlimited resources, he will empower you with inner strength through his Spirit. Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust in him. So it moves from like God's present in creation, and then God actually takes on human form, and then God actually dwells inside of us on an ongoing basis. I love this picture of presence. When God wanted to be present with us, he didn't shout his love from the heavens. He sent Jesus to be with us, and he sent his Spirit to be in us, to make his home in our hearts. And so presence is a big deal. Now, here's how you spell presence. T-I-M-E. Time. Let me give you just a couple practical ideas to help us, because I want you to be able to put this into practice. Face your kids. Let them see eye contact when you talk to them. Ask them follow-up questions, right? Engage them in conversation. As a parent, that's your job, not theirs. Ditch the cell phone or computer till the kids are in bed. Here's a good one. I learned this early on. Finish the phone call before you walk in. When my kids were young, I'd be on a phone call on the way home, and then I'd still be on the call. I'd walk in. They're excited to see Dad. And then I'd be like, hey, hold on. I'm on a phone call. And I'm communicating to them, you're second right now. And that's not what I want to communicate to my kids. Say yes to all the dad, do you want to, mom, do you want to questions. Do your best to say yes to those questions. Your kids need you to be interested in their world, even if they give you the impression that they don't want it. It's essential for their development. And for presence to happen, what might you need to sacrifice in your time, in your priorities, in your preferences, so that you don't sacrifice relationship with them? One of the commonalities of amazing kids is that their parents are present. Your very presence is a sign of your caring and your connectedness for your kids. Can I tell you, this is why kids love grandparents. Because grandparents are present. They read the whole book, every page. You know what I'm talking about, parents. I know that trick. Oh, 3 pages at a time. They don't know the story. Book's done. All right, time for bed. But grandparents read the whole book, right? They're present. They lay on the floor and cuddle. And what kid doesn't love to hear about different medicines and chronic health issues, you know? But you get the idea. They need your presence, and that never goes away. And if we give them our presence now, then they will want our presence in their life as they get older. So here's 4 things kids need: unconditional acceptance, ongoing physical affection. They need serious fun and consistent presence. Let's do everything we can to give these to our kids, or to give these to the kids in whose life we have influence. And ultimately, this is what Jesus did for us, gave us his presence. That you should know this, all of us. The reason you exist, the reason you even draw breath on this planet was because God created us to exist in loving community with God and with each other. That's why we're here. The reason you and I exist is so that we can experience community with God, community with each other. There's a whole lot of things we do in between in the margins that help us get to that, but that's the purpose. And then, as humanity, somewhere along the way, every one of us, from the first human beings to every one of us, said, God, thanks, but no thanks. I got this. I'll do it my own way. And the Bible calls that sin. The word for that is meaning like we missed the mark. That wasn't what we were created for. So now we're left searching for the purpose. And so at the right time in human history, God sent Jesus into the world. He didn't just shout his love from the heavens. He actually sent Jesus. Jesus took on flesh and bone. He became one of us. He experienced the things we experience. And then he takes the broken relationship that we have with each other and the broken relationship that we have with God. He takes our sin, he takes our brokenness, and he takes it upon himself. He says, I want to restore that relationship, that your relationship with God and your relationship with others. I want to bring you back to that thing for which you were originally created. And then he allows himself to be put to death. His body is laid in a tomb, and according to multiple eyewitnesses, hundreds of people saw Jesus alive again, which means death is not the end. There is more to this life than this life. That's why I love the words of the song that we sang today. It said, death was never going to hold you, so it's never going to hold me. Because when Jesus rose from the dead, he overcame death, which means we don't fear death. Instead, we've been invited to be a part of God's family forever. And we're told over and over again, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, which means you don't behave your way into this. You don't earn your way into it. You can't just church or attend your way into it. This is simply an invitation from the God of the universe who created you and loves you. And if you've never said yes to that, or maybe it's been a really long time and you're coming back to it, I'd encourage you to say yes to that invitation to be a part of God's family. And for those of you that would say, you know what, my next step is just to take one of these things and begin to put it into practice with kids in my life, my own kids or my grandkids or my nieces or nephews or whatever kids you have influence in their life. Pick one of these things and say, man, this is my goal, is to begin to put some of these things into practice. For those of you who would say, I want to say yes to following Jesus, would you just agree with this prayer? God, please forgive my sins. Forgive me, God, for the times that I've walked away from you. I'm so grateful that you never walk away from me. And I want to say yes to your invitation. Make me your son, make me your daughter. Help me to put my trust in you and to follow you as best as I know how from this moment on. And God, I pray for every single one of us. God, parents, grandparents, foster parents, adopted parents, step parents, God, aunts and uncles and coaches and mentors and God, soon to be parents and all of us. God, we need these things in our own life. We know that the next generation needs these things in their life. So God, help us to prioritize these things. Help us to give kids our presence, our attention, our focus. God, that we would love them well, that we would be a really good reflection of how you are a heavenly Father for us. God, we commit this next generation into your hands. Give us the wisdom to know how to apply this, and then give us the courage to do it. In Jesus' name, amen.